Welcome to Senior Living Visionaries, a podcast for senior living leaders who are looking to stay ahead of the curve in the industry. On this show, we feature leaders and innovators in senior living who are pushing the boundaries and creating new, effective services and solutions. And now, let's settle in as host Jennifer Drago connects us with today's guests.
Welcome to Senior Living Visionaries, where we showcase the leaders and innovators in the field of senior living who are shaping our future. I'm your host, Jennifer Drago, strategy consultant and CEO of Peak to Profit. And today I'm so excited to welcome Sue Paul, who is the Senior Director of Wellbeing and Brain Health at Asbury Communities. We're going to talk about all things wellness and brain health, so I'm such a fan and so excited to learn more about Asbury's projects. Sue is a licensed occupational therapist with more than 30 years of experience working with older adults with orthopedic and neurological conditions, specializing in neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Sue is a certified health coach and functional aging specialist, as well as a brain trainer. She's certified through the American Council on Exercise. She was appointed the Virginia I. Jones Alzheimer's and Related Disorders Council by Governor Hogan in 2020 and was a longtime ambassador for the Alzheimer's Association to Maryland's Congressional 6th District. She's the founder and executive director of Seniorscapes, Inc., a nonprofit whose mission is to create safe and accessible public parks that are also dementia-friendly for older adults. And that's fantastic. I want to learn more about that as well. So welcome, Sue.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Jennifer.
You bet. It's my pleasure. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the organization that you work for, Asbury?
Sure. Asbury Communities is based in Frederick, Maryland, where our headquarters are. And then we have 6 senior retirement communities throughout Maryland and Pennsylvania.
Very nice. And you also have an integrated services division. So
Asbury Communities is it's a nonprofit, but we have a couple for-profit arms that provide different kinds of services for the organization. So we have an integrated services division, which has our rehab company, our lab, and our pharmacy. And then we also have a technology company called ThriveWell Tech.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you haven't heard of ThriveWell Tech, one of my favorite people, Maj Alwan, is there leading ThriveWell, and so they're really great in really facilitating and advocating for really cool tech platforms that support different parts of senior living, everything from HR to resident care. So that's amazing. All right, and I know that we're also going to touch on the Asbury Foundation today. I had as my guest J.D. Schumann, and who's the president and CEO of the Asbury Foundation, and Andrew John-Arrett, who's your CFO. Just a couple weeks ago, we talked about the philanthropic strategic plan and how that's really driving the ability for residents to invest in areas of their passion, one of which includes brain health. So I know this will come up today in our discussion. All right, so let's just start right there. Tell me more, if you would, about Asbury's brain health program. So where did this idea kind of originate? How did it start? And, how did Asbury decide that brain fitness or brain health should really be a core priority for resident wellness?
I think it was a number of serendipitous events that kind of all came together. I was actually hired by Asbury in 2020 during COVID because they were looking for a wellness director who had some knowledge of brain health and some knowledge of rehab, which I fit the bill for because I am an occupational therapist and I've spent most of my career in the rehabilitation side of dementia or any kind of brain injury, neurological dysfunction. But then 10 years ago, I became a health coach to get in front of these neurodegenerative diseases because prevention probably is our best bet. Mm-hmm. So I kind of know both sides of that coin. And then I just have a passion for this brain health mission. So it kind of just worked out. And so when I stepped through the doors of Asbury Methodist Village in Gaithersburg, the conversations had already started around starting a rock steady boxing program for people with Parkinson's disease. And the donor who was very interested in making that happen, she was just so easy to work with and such a dreamer, So we started just like dreaming together of, wow, we could have this and we could have this and we could just, the vision just kind of expanded into this, brain health center for excellence that has a rock climbing wall and a boxing studio and a technology gym. And I mean, we have all the bells and whistles that were initially brought forward by this one not resident, but a donor who was just passionate about it. So that's kind of how it all came together. It was magical.
Okay. So really it was a donor with a vision and you helping to shape that vision on a specific campus. And then would you say now that that vision has expanded beyond that campus? And what does it look like today?
Yeah, so we launched our Brain Health Center at the first location in 2021. We had a great deal of success right off the bat with as far as participation, proof of concept, and outcomes, and which meant that we were able to take the show on the road. So I got moved to a position at the corporate office as the Senior Director of Wellbeing and Brain Health for Asbury Communities. And we're now implementing the brain health program across all of our campuses. So it's really exciting to watch it all grow.
And does it look the same at every campus or is it a little bit different?
No, it doesn't. So the bones of the brain health program called Kinnections. It's Kinnections with a K, so it's Kinn. And it's a takeoff on, the word kinetic energy or kinesiology, meaning movement, because it's a very movement-based program because so much of the research supports these physical exercise interventions being neuroprotective, and facilitating brain health. So it's very movement-based, but it's also lifestyle-based. But, not every campus has the ability or the size or the resources to have a rock wall and a boxing studio. Those are just those extra bells and whistles that have been a blast to implement, but not required to run the Kinnections program.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So tell us about, I heard you say the rock steady boxing, the rock, I've seen videos of the rock climbing wall, and I think if you give me permission, I'll link to those in the show notes so people can kind of visualize this. I've seen the tech gym. Is there anything else that's part of a brain health center? Or maybe we take the Roseboro Center that you started with. Yeah,
so the Brain Health Center is just sort of it's basically a wellness center. So there's a regular fitness gym. There's an exercise studio where we hold the bigger classes, and there's a pool. There's also acres and acres of beautiful nature, and it's a beautiful campus. But the brain health side of things is really about novel experiences, new things that residents really don't typically get exposed to, which is why we brought in a rock wall, which is why we, have 5 boxing classes now, not just the rock steady boxing, but and it's a big focus on lifestyle, on all the things in the research that can support brain health.
Yeah,
is what we implement. Yeah.
So I would love you to talk about each of the things that the components we've mentioned already, because I know just a little bit about how they connect to brain health. But so the rock steady boxing, and I know you said you do different types of boxing, and that's probably for movement and physical activity too. But rock steady is a specific program that works with Parkinson's patients. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So tell us the thought behind why boxing and Parkinson's.
Well, the Rock Steady program is already a licensed program that's been up and running for years. It's all over the country. It's worldwide, probably. So we have a license to do Rock Steady boxing at our campus. But the other boxing programming and all the programming is really based on a lot of principles around what's the minimal amount of physical exercise that's conducive to brain health, or overall health in general. Then what are the specific types of exercise that impact brain health across different domains of cognition? Because it's not just about your memory. There's other types of cognition that we have to look at. So it's really a blending of best practice. Like most adults should get 150 to 300 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous intensity exercise per the CDC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just looking at that in a retirement setting, that's not little pink weights, like
Right.
intensity exercise is a half hour to an hour, 5 days a week of moderately intensive exercise. So you need to be breathing hard and sweating. And it's hard to get that with little pink weights, right?
Right.
And typical programming. But boxing, oh boy, like heart rate up, sweaty, such a challenge, and that kind of dovetails over to the brain, like the cognitive aspect of it, which is the novel experiences, new learning a new task that's out of your comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
where you have to create new neural connections because you don't have any existing ones to use. You have to create new ones. And you're just expanding your cognitive reserve in that regard because you're building new pathways,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of protective in that way too. So we have this really elevated physical opportunity, not that it's required, but it's an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to get to that point. And it's novel, and there's a lot of challenges we can build in there that kind of elevate one or the other or both at the same time. And the rock wall has the same principles, and our extra gaming and our tech gym have the same principles,
Sure. And so the rock wall is it as much about building strength to pull yourself up a rock wall as it is the novel experience, because many people haven't experienced that?
Yeah, it's all the things. So yeah, it's all of those things. So our rock wall, it's a 22-foot rock wall. So it's not a piece of cake. It's and we have 4 routes and 3 auto belays. So the auto belay, the harness that you wear, does not unweight you on your way up. So you're climbing under your own power, up as high as you can go. You don't have to go to the top, but if you do, you can ring the bells and everybody claps, and it's a lot of fun. But then there's a lot of learning with that. Like, what's the technique? How do I get down? That's a good technique to pushing off the wall. We call it moon bouncing. You push off the wall and
Mm-hmm.
the belay lowers you, but you have to kind of moon bounce it because, there's a learning curve to it. And then you have to stick the landing. We land on mats. It's perfectly safe, but, learning, get your feet down at the right time and distribute your weight. And so there's a lot of motor learning to it. And it's a novel activity. And then we can add some cognitive demands too. I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is so fun.
Yeah.
But we gamify it, right? So let's say a person has to, all the holds on the wall are different colors. So they have to do a rainbow and they have to climb, using alternating on different colors all the way up the wall. Or they play Twister on the wall, which is really amazing.
Oh, nice.
But you can't get complacent with this activity. It has to be harder or challenging every time. But they'll spin the wheel and they'll say, right hand blue. And you have to stretch or find the place where your right hand can be on blue. Hold that position until it's your turn again because somebody else is on the wall next to you playing against you. And then move your next limb. And so you're hanging out on the wall with a lot of physical exertion until
I love it.
you can move the next limb. Imagine, it's really, really challenging.
Yeah.
Our residents love it. Up to the age of 96, we've had people climbing this wall.
Holy moly.
Well over 300 people climb the wall up to the age of 96. It's been very successful and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And good for them.
So what, I'm just curious, I'm sure you've had grandparents bring their grandchildren and say, hey, check this out. And it would be cool for them to show off and show what they could do to their grandparents, to their grandchildren. But do the kids want to play? And do you allow them to do that? Do you allow them?
Yeah. We let the kids and the grandparents and the parents in the middle, they all get to climb the wall. So yeah, they're welcome to bring their family.
That's awesome. And then, so the tech gym, I've seen it, it's kind of a big screen, and I'm sure there's lots of games that people can play, but the one that I saw was different spots on the screen kind of lit up, and you had to kind of touch them in the order that they lit up. But what other, those, the kind of games that are kind of challenging, I'm sure novel activity, but also, there's some cognitive demand there too, right?
Exactly. So our tech gym is a room that has all our technology in it, our extra gaming toys, basically. So what you're describing is our Smart Fit board, which is a panel with 9 lights on it, and they light up a letter, a number, a color, a shape, or a little smiley face. And there's over 200 games you can play. and it's programmable by a lot of factors. So, we can, again, up the physical challenge with it. Say, for example, a game knockout. They have to hit the lights as fast as they can and turn them all off. That's one. And you can do that for time. You want to do it faster every time, right? So let's say you do it in 30 seconds. And then we have you do it standing on one foot. And it takes 45 seconds to knock it out because you're worried about your balance at the same time. This is called dual task training, which is a lot. It's one of the founding principles of our whole program. So dual tasking requires you to think about two things at once, but they have different goals. So maintaining my balance and knocking out the lights are two different goals. It's not doing two things with the same goal. So you'll see that the second time standing on one foot, it took me 45 seconds. So my dual task cost is 15 seconds, right? I can do it 30 seconds with both feet on the ground and 45 with one foot. So the goal would be to shrink that time so that my dual tasking gets better. So I'm better at thinking at two things at once. It's great for fall prevention because a lot of older adults really can't do two things at once very well. If you talk to them like why they fell, unless it was like a slip and fall kind of thing, they were trying to do something, while they were doing one thing.
Yeah.
They do multiple.
Got it.
And they slow down, and they have to think slower and things. So we're trying to speed up their thinking, give them multiple things to think about at once. And the outcomes have been fantastic. So what we're doing is working.
Yeah. I want to ask you about the outcomes, but I just have a quick question as it relates to wellness. We know whether we're talking about preventing dementia or, brain health or any chronic disease, we know fitness is a big part of it. We've been talking a lot about that. Nutrition is a big part of that as well. So is nutrition integrated in any way in the overall programming for folks who want to take a real preventive approach?
Yeah. So we talk about all the lifestyle factors, and I call it circling the wagons. So what are all the protective things we can do? And nutrition is a big one of them. So, we recommend following the MIND diet, for example, which would be a combination of the Mediterranean and the DASH diet. Mm-hmm. So that's like kind of an easy thing to follow. But we also have, because some of our residents are on a meal plan, might not have a lot of choices that it's spaghetti night. But we've built in ways that they can select brain healthy options to build a brain healthy meal. So, say like, for example, the broccoli will have a little brain symbol next to it on the menu. So they can select that item to build a brain healthy kind of food plan. So yeah, we push all of these lifestyle interventions, whether it's nutrition or sleep or movement, socialization, all the things. We promote all the things.
That's awesome.
Protect their brains. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you've integrated that right into your dining program because that makes so much sense. And we have to kind of make it easy, right? I mean, and not just for seniors, but for me.
Right. Absolutely.
I wish I had a menu at home that told me what I should eat for my brain. So, Okay, so tell me about outcomes because I'm fascinated to learn what types of things are you measuring and what have you found with your brain health program so far?
Okay. So part of the Kinnections program is a pretty robust assessment protocol that we use. So Kinnections is based on 7 cognitive domains. Those domains include your sensory motor function, or perceptual function, attention, memory, executive function, processing speed, language, and social cognition. So we do a global cognitive assessment, that single number that you get when you go to the doctor, your score was at, 29, but you don't know what to do with that number. Is that good? Is it bad? What should I do about it? So we do a whole battery of assessments that look at those domains and can kind of flush out where the weaknesses are. So, for example, we all know that person who's a great talker, like they might have a deficit that's like, why'd they decide that? Or that wasn't a good choice, but they can talk their way out of it or talk around it because they have good language skills. So typically when you have a deficit, you can kind of cover up. We all do this. We all have strengths and weaknesses and we compensate, right? We do the best we can. But we try to flush out where that weaker point is, or we call it an opportunity for improvement, not a weakness. And then we target it with exercises and lifestyle that are shown to help that problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, executive function, which is the judge and jury of your brain and the part of your brain that helps you generate options or make a plan or strategy or consider consequences when making a decision. That part of your brain, when that is off,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen that before, like a 17-year-old boy is a typical example of poor executive function because they don't know consequences or care. But resistance training, strength training has been shown to improve executive function. It's in the research, bam. So you are going to go to the circuit training class 3 times a week and lift some weights, lift some heavy things. And what you might find is, I don't like to lift heavy things. Yeah, I know, but let's just try it once a week and see how it goes. And then, so that's the coaching aspect is finding, like any coach, is finding your goal is here, but let's find a comfortable, manageable way to get there, because it is a give and take.
Yeah.
But you'll find people avoid the things that they're not good at, and they, like all of us, and they, gravitate towards the things they are good at. And we have to kind of navigate that and push them towards those opportunities for improvement.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So this assessment, is it something you developed yourself, and is it available to, do you through any of your service divisions, do you consult with other senior living providers who want to do things like this?
Well, it's kind of new, right? So I did consult with a couple neuroscientists, people much smarter than me on best practice, what's the best evidence-based assessment tool out there. And then we had to navigate our wellness professionals not stepping into the clinical realm, like they're not clinicians.
Right.
So, and then letting our clinical staff do it when it's appropriate. So if one of the wellness team members thinks like, all right, this is probably something that needs to be looked at by a clinician, they'll refer to therapy. So our OTs or speech therapists can take a look at their brains using similar assessment tools for the same goal, the global cognitive score, the domain specific scores. We do, I forgot to mention, quality of life indicators, like
nice.
sleep and depression and those kind of things. We do like a subjective score, like how do they think they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of important to know too. We might do a caregiver interview to kind of get some ideas of how it's actually going and somebody else's view. So anyway, the therapy team can do the same type of assessments and come up with a plan the same way. So
yeah.
And then, so we're very careful about that.
Yeah, well, I think that's really important. And thank you for pointing that out, because it is really easy in any industry to have that mix where you have, non-clinical people just right on the edge of the clinical realm, right? And
right.
I like the way you've kind of separated the swim lanes there, so to speak. So is the idea then that somebody gets assessed, okay, I know what my deficits are, you're going to give me opportunities to work on those deficits. Are they assessed then, is the idea like on an annual basis, or?
So this is how we did it. We call it our engagement plan, which records their scores and then kind of those opportunities for improvement and their strengths. And then kind of all the recommendations, like do these lifestyle recommendations and then do these certain targeted things to try to, hone in on what they need. So they have their engagement plan. They can take that plan to their doctor and show them, but, we don't share that with anybody, or, it's confidential. But the outcomes so the reassessments, they're really designed to be done annually.
Okay.
That's how we designed it. But because we just started the program and we were anxious for some feedback right away, we did like the lowest 25 or so scores in 6 months. We did a 6-month evaluation of them. 22 of them in 6 months improved their scores, and the 3 that didn't follow their plan, or had moved off or gotten sick or something happened. But the 22 that followed their plan improved. Then after a year, now we have 150 people following their plans. We had 91% improvement after 1 year, and then we had, and of that 9% that didn't, they're the folks that didn't follow their plan, right? Or they just did their own thing. Maybe they didn't drop movement altogether, but they, started doing, just kept do, not what was recommended, but what they preferred. And what was most interesting is the biggest gains, the biggest jump in scores were the rock climbers and the boxers.
Wow.
So, yeah, so that was exciting.
So something's there.
Yeah, so this is just, and it's a very small sample size. It's not like, this is really publishable yet, but it is exciting, as a new thing, as a new program that it's working. So
I want to make sure that I heard correctly. So you have 150 people participating, at least in this research or being assessed. 91% of those 150 saw some kind of improvement.
Yes, but I don't think all 150 were reassessed after 1 year. So we have 150 enrolled.
Okay.
And I think that group was probably 60 or 70 people that was assessed at the 1 year mark.
Okay.
It's time consuming to assess that many people.
Yeah, no, I know. But think about the impact that you're having on those 60 or 70 people, and at least the vast majority of them. I think it's pretty amazing. And I also think it's amazing. I mean, how big is that campus where you're saying 150 people have enrolled at some point? How big?
Yeah, well, it's a huge campus. So this particular campus has 800 independent living residents.
Okay.
So it's fairly large. I think there's 1,400 total between AL and long-term care and memory care. Mm-hmm. So, but those 800, we have 150 of them engaged in the brain health program and working on their plan. So and it's growing all the time.
Yeah, so fantastic. That is amazing. Okay, well, I know we had these questions all planned out and I've blown it completely because I just kept asking. But we did want to talk about philanthropy and how I believe specifically at your flagship model. Do you call that your flagship model, the Roseberry Center? Roseberry?
Sure.
Okay. So philanthropy helped to fund I think a significant portion of that. So tell me about the role of philanthropy and how you're kind of now connected to the foundation and able to really help the residents realize their passion on different campuses around brain health.
Yeah, it has been such an enlightening experience for me because I didn't know that you could do it this way, but I think it's so brilliant. But really aligning the residents' passion with with the opportunities, like that's what you're bringing together, like something they really care about, with the opportunity to implement it somewhere somehow. So that's how it started, with this one donor having an interest in Rock City boxing, which just expanded, which led to like other residents who are interested in, say, like an arts program, like a more robust arts program and things like that. And then donations kind of funnel that way. Yeah, I would like to see more of that too,
Mm-hmm.
Philanthropy does drive a lot of, I guess it keeps the wheels turning. Like it gets them turning and it keeps them turning because everybody's attention and resources start going toward the thing that's moving forward, like mm-hmm. This is working, let's go. So it's been really great. I think J.D. Schumann does an amazing job of managing or kind of directing this whole philanthropy program, and his three-legged stool mm-hmm. that he's always talking about of ways that, that a retirement community makes money is through resident fees and philanthropy and government, whatever else the government's going to donate. So, so philanthropy makes things happen.
It sure does. And what I've always said about brain health, my years in senior living is, there's so many people who have had family members afflicted by Alzheimer's or some kind of dementia. And if they don't currently have symptoms, they want to do everything in their power. And I'm in that camp, by the way. I have two grandmothers who both had Alzheimer's. I want to do everything in my power to make sure that I don't have to put my family through that or suffer through that myself. So tell me what I can do today. And I know that everything I do today can impact what happens for me, 20, 30 years down the line. And it's just never too late when it comes to brain health. So I can understand, I think.
But never too early.
Yeah, never too early. Thank you. That's a better way to say it.
Yeah,
never too early. Yeah. So fantastic. And I really am inspired by how Asbury has partnered that philanthropic opportunity with, where the residents really want to see their own campuses develop. So that's amazing. Mm-hmm. Awesome. What's next for your brain health program? So how is this going to evolve over time in your vision?
It's always new. So, we have brain health coaches now. It's a kind of a new and evolving profession. And we're hiring, so we have 6 now. As of yesterday, our 6th one just joined the team. That's one at each campus. And so our brain health coach it's a wellness professional. They might have a background in fitness or education or psychology, being familiar with, some kind of cognitive testing. Anyway, a diverse background, all have an interest in health and wellness and a passion for older adults. So it's kind of finding this right person. And then we train them to learn all the things we can, as much neurology as I can stuff into their heads about, what's happening in the aging brain. So that constant learning and perfecting of our education is kind of what I'm doing now, as well as rolling out Kinnections at each site. And, the residents, there's a big learning curve for them too.
Mm-hmm.
That takes time to kind of get their mind around doing uncomfortable things. Why, like, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Or all the physical exertion, like this is a new concept to, the person in Erie who's never done anything, like athletic before or something. So it takes a while to get the culture shifted and excited, in that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
Yeah.
is the thought with the brain health coaches at each campus that they'll, even if a community doesn't have a center for brain health yet, that they might be able to help with some of the assessment? I mean, because certainly, as we talked about, you don't need a brain health center to work on your brain health. So that's the thought then.
That's exactly what we're doing. So we're starting with assessments, and they each have, each campus already has a SmartFit board and a balance assessment tool called Senso, which is a really cool,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really cool AI balance system. It's really high tech. So each campus has a toy already, a toy or two, but you don't need the toys. You get the scores. You have kind of a matrix to follow on, like, if these are the deficits, these are the activities that have been shown to improve
Mm-hmm.
that deficit. So they have sort of a recipe to follow. And then it's coaching,
Mm-hmm.
it's just building a good relationship with the residents and, learning some of those motivational techniques that we all need to keep moving forward. And that's all you need really for a brain health program. If you have a rock wall and a boxing studio, that's gravy. That's wonderful. But
Yeah.
it's not required. So we're already starting.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you mentioned the balance equipment, Senso, is that the name of it? So
Yeah.
I just want to, for my own edification, because I know, again, working in senior living, something we're always working on, always have been from a wellness perspective, is fall prevention. You mentioned that earlier.
Sure.
And so does that balance equipment help with fall prevention, and how does that connect back to brain health?
Well, yeah. Well, brain and balance kind of go hand in hand, because
Okay.
balance system is kind of housed in the brain anyway. So,
Sure.
and I told you a lot of falls happen as a result of not being able to dual task, do two things at once.
Yeah.
So the balance system, they're all new, by the way. Like, we've only had them a couple of weeks and it's just getting started, but they do assess, they look for different strategies unique to every person on how they use their balance. So maybe it's their ankles or their hips or their knees, or maybe they don't weight shift right and left. Maybe they, it's different physical components to balance too.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a screen. So it's like kind of like, remember the game Dance Dance Revolution?
Oh, yeah.
Where the arrow goes this way.
Yeah.
So they're stepping on a force plate in sync with the screen, but it might be they have to step over logs or, follow whatever's on the screen, but the technology's measuring things like how much weight is shifting or how much, where the physical deficits are as well. So
Sure.
There's a lot to be pulled out of this technology. I'm just not a master yet.
Yeah, no, but the way you described it, I can now see, not just obviously the balance, the gait, all those things that are important for fall prevention sound like they're there. And the gaming aspect is testing that dual tasking that you were talking about earlier. So,
exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, so you obviously love the work you do, and for other senior living executives and professionals that are listening to this podcast, what guidance would you give them about, if they're not yet kind of engaging around brain health, brain fitness, What's a small way that they could maybe take a step that way, or what have you found that has really engaged your residents and made them want to participate in these types of programs?
Um, you need a champion or two. That's always helpful. So, and I think one of the greatest resources is the therapy team, whether that's in-house or contracted in. There's always that therapist. This is my experience. There's always a therapist who really cares about this stuff, that would love to carry the torch for it. But finding other champions, people with personal experience around dementia, around not wanting this to happen to anybody else, kind of thing. And then when you can talk to residents and kind of remove the stigma around cognitive decline, because it's just like, knees go bad and elbows go bad and
Yeah.
hearts go bad. Things can happen if you don't treat them well. So what are the things we can do to keep your brain healthy and, and keep you sharp throughout your life? And even if it's, and a great argument is even delaying the symptom
Onset.
progression. We don't know enough about the disease, how to cure it or stop it completely, but we can delay for sure. So if you're willing to be assessed early enough that we can find those areas that might push you toward independence and normal cognition longer. I mean, but that gives you, a lot of bang for your buck, a lot of quality of life, a lot of good years, where you're not just on this trajectory that has everybody panicked. I mean, you are in control of your decisions and you're being proactive. And I think that's a good message that is well received when you can twist it away from a disease, illness, kind of thing to a proactive, preventative thing.
Right.
I think it helps.
Right. Yes. And the delaying the progression is so important. I love everything that you've talked about here. And, I just wanted to ask, as you were assessing, and I know this is new for you, but as you're assessing any of your clientele, your residents, what am I talking about? As you're assessing your residents, have you seen anybody that, maybe through their assessment, you go, wow, they really, maybe they're not, haven't been evaluated by a neurologist or the appropriate person, where their cognitive impairment is challenged enough that, in addition to lifestyle factors, there are medications that delay progression of disease states, and but somebody has to actually have a diagnosis in order to do that, and a proper evaluation by a medical professional. So, have you referred folks where you say, yeah, you need to, yeah?
Yeah, there's been a few catches there, like something's up or something's been obvious to everybody, but the resident doesn't buy into the fact that something's
Yeah.
wrong with me. So yeah, and that leads to I think it's sort of a void and it's a gap in care, and it's I think across all kinds of industry related settings, but there's a gap between who's going to help that person get to the doctor's appointment, and who's going to call the family and update them, and if there's a dynamic there that you get kind of brought into that's not really where you belong in that space, and then who's managing that
for sure
middle ground is really, really challenging. So we've had a few tricky ones where we don't want to overstep, we can't say what we suspect to just anybody, and
right.
So it's been tricky. You have to get permission to talk to families and to talk to neurologists. And if they're not physically able to make that phone call to set up that appointment and understand why,
right.
And I think that's just a common thing we all run into.
Yeah.
A person could be living in their house and that they need something, but you can't make it happen. So yeah, we've seen that a couple of times. It's just a sticky thing to navigate.
To your point, senior living providers navigate that every day. I mean, they see it, but what I think is positive here is that you have the tools that can help to, show that, there might be something here. And then if the person is amenable, their family's amenable, and all those things have to fall into place. But I mean, really, we can be getting them care that they might have otherwise not received. And so I think that's a real positive.
Yeah, we built in into kind of the programming. Each resident gets a 30-minute consult a month with, either anybody. It could be a trainer, a physical trainer, like a fitness trainer. It could be a nutritionist. It could be, or it's the brain health coach most likely. But they can spend that time in a three-way call with a family member, and facilitating that, which I didn't foresee that as a job requirement, honestly, when we started. But then to your point, when you see there's a problem here, we have to do something. Well, how do we navigate this? And using the people we have, the resources we have, it's a pretty tricky thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not awesome when it happens, but I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing. Advancing how as we as senior living providers can really be a partner in brain health, addressing healthy behaviors that support that, and potentially identifying when there are challenges that folks can choose to work on if they so desire. It's a really important role. And I just want to also commend you for bringing the kind of the research component and being able to really speak to those outcomes. I know it's early, but I think this is really going to help give direction to our industry in terms of what we can do to help. We say we help residents be happier and live, healthier, more purposeful lives. And this is an absolute direct reflection of that. So just kudos to you and all the work that you're doing there. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to really thank you for being here today, Sue, and being willing to share your story. I know we're going to get a lot of interest in learning more about what Asbury is doing, and I'm happy to be helping to spread the word because I do think it's so inspirational. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much. I love talking about it. So thanks so much.
I can tell it shows.
All right.
I'm Jennifer Drago, and you've been listening to the Senior Visionaries podcast and radio show, where we explore cutting-edge ideas and breakthroughs that are shaping the future of the senior living industry. Please subscribe to be notified each time an episode drops at seniorlivingvisionaries.com. You can also find all of our prior episodes there, including the episode featuring J.D. Schumann and Andrew Jeanneret from Asbury, talking about how philanthropy supports brain health and many other things at Asbury. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Senior Living Visionaries podcast and radio show, where we showcase the leaders and innovators in the industry who are pushing the boundaries and setting the stage for the future in senior living and services. Join us next time as we share the bold ideas and breakthroughs of the industry's most forward-thinking leaders here on Senior Living Visionaries.